Shortly after the release of an audio recording this past Saturday morning of a conversation that allegedly included
testimony that sent a shockwave through the entire league. According to reports circulating online, an anonymous referee confessed, quote, "We were told certain players needed to be humbled. If we didn't follow suit, our assignments would disappear and our careers would be over." That single allegation is the match that lit the fuse on the biggest scandal in WNBA history. And in the middle of that firestorm, as the league's credibility is questioned and fans are demanding answers, the league's own commissioner, Cathy Engelbert, has gone completely silent. But what if I told you that silence isn't an admission of guilt for this specific scandal? What if it's actually a calculated strategy that has backfired so spectacularly it's about to cost her everything? This isn't just about a few bad calls anymore. This is about a power vacuum at the very top of the WNBA. And tonight, we're connecting the dots on how Cathy Engelbert's silence isn't just a PR mistake. It's the very thing that gives NBA Commissioner Adam Silver the power to step in and dismantle her front office. This is the story of how a leader's inaction in a crisis can become the justification for her own removal. If you believe that where there's smoke, there's fire, and you're tired of the official narratives, do me a favor and hit that like button. It tells us you're here for the real story. Okay, so before we go any deeper, we have to acknowledge the story that's burning up the internet right now, the one that everyone thinks they know. And let's be clear, this is pure social media speculation, but it's the critical context for everything that's happening. The narrative goes like this: NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, acting like a sheriff cleaning up a lawless town, launched a secret internal investigation into the WNBA's officiating. What he supposedly found was dynamite, a list of corrupt referees receiving off-the-books payments disguised as consulting fees directly from Cathy Engelbert's administration. The alleged goal? To orchestrate games from behind the scenes. According to these viral reports, certain refs were instructed to let the league's new cash cow, Caitlin Clark, get physically punished on the court, to swallow their whistles and let the hard fouls fly without consequence. It's a simple, explosive story. A corrupt commissioner caught red-handed, a targeted superstar, and Adam Silver stepping in to save the day. But that story, it's almost too perfect, too straightforward. And for narrative analysts like us, when a story is that clean, it usually means we're not seeing the entire chessboard. The real story here isn't just about a handful of alleged crooked refs. The real story is about a commissioner who was already sitting on a powder keg of internal problems. And her decision to stay silent on this particular firestorm is the fatal mistake that's allowing her rivals to make their move. So, to really understand why Cathy Engelbert is silent now, we have to rewind the tape and look at the battles she was already fighting and losing. To do that, we have to filter out the noise of the current scandal and look at the documented, on-the-record facts. The cracks in the foundation were showing long before this. Let's just take Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White. Throughout this season, she has been openly critical of the officiating, particularly how her players have been treated. It culminated in her getting teed up for, in her words, protecting her team. After one game, she stated it plainly, quote, "I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games." That isn't a fan on Twitter. That's a head coach on a public podium telling the world that the league's officiating is failing and that her players are paying the price for it. And this isn't a one-sided issue. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark. You have other stars like Angel Reese who have been just as vocal. Reese was fined for speaking out, saying that the officiating has to be fixed, and bluntly stating, "I am tired of this shit." Do you see the pattern here? Before any of this wild speculation about secret lists and payments ever surfaced, you had key figures in the league, coaches and star players, publicly screaming that the system was broken. They were essentially telling anyone who would listen that the officiating was inconsistent and damaging the integrity of the game. And the commissioner's office was either unable or unwilling to fix it. The fire was already smoldering. The latest scandal just poured gasoline on it. So this brings us to the central question. If your league is already taking heavy fire for real, documented officiating problems, why would you go completely silent when a storm of unverified rumors suddenly engulfs you? This is where we have to step into the war room and analyze the strategy. This leads us to the first major theory about Engelbert's silence. Let's call it the "don't feed the trolls" strategy. From a classic old-school corporate PR standpoint, this makes a certain kind of sense. Think about it. We've been digging, and the most explosive parts of this story, the idea that Silver fired Engelbert, the existence of a physical list of paid refs, they aren't coming from major news outlets. They are originating and spreading almost exclusively on social media and YouTube channels. The traditional crisis management playbook says you never, ever respond directly to baseless internet rumors. The second a commissioner for a major sports league holds a press conference to say, "No, I do not have a secret list of corrupt referees," you have just made that rumor a legitimate headline news story. You give it oxygen. You elevate the narrative from the fringes into the mainstream. But here's the critical miscalculation. That playbook is dangerously outdated. It was written for a world that doesn't exist anymore. In the modern information war, silence isn't interpreted as professional restraint, it is overwhelmingly seen as evidence of guilt. When you refuse to speak, you create a vacuum, and a vacuum of information will always be filled. If you don't fill it with your side of the story, your critics and rivals will happily fill it for you. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Engelbert chose to play by old rules, and in doing so, she left the entire narrative battlefield wide open. But what if her silence isn't a flawed strategy? What if she's paralysis? This brings us to our second and frankly much darker theory. This is the no-win scenario. Engelbert isn't silent by choice. She's silent because she's trapped. Let's look at the jaws of this trap. On one side, if she comes out and holds a press conference to deny these wild rumors, she immediately gives reporters a chance to ask about the problems that are very, very real. She'd be forced to answer for the fines levied against coaches, the public complaints from players like Angel Reese, and the egregious officiating that Stephanie White called out. Even worse, what if there are uncomfortable internal discussions she doesn't want coming to light? Now, this is where we get into the heavy speculation, but there are whispers online of internal memos expressing concern that the double C, Caitlin Clark momentum was becoming, quote, problematic for the league narrative. If that's true, a press conference would be a minefield. Now look at the other side of the trap, staying silent. As we've established, in today's climate, that's being seen as an admission of guilt. It creates a vacuum and lets the story spiral out of her control. To make matters worse, reports are now surfacing, again from the social media sphere, that corporate sponsors are getting nervous and are reconsidering their WNBA partnerships. She can't speak without risking a bigger fire, but her silence is spooking the money. It is a perfect tactical dilemma. So, what do you believe is closer to the truth here? Is this a calculated, don't feed the trolls strategy that's just horribly backfiring? Or is she completely trapped with no good moves left on the board? Let me know which theory you're leaning towards in the comments below. Whether she's being strategic or she's paralyzed, the result on the ground is exactly the same. A dangerous power vacuum has opened up at the very highest level of the WNBA. And in the world of corporate politics, a vacuum is an invitation for a stronger force to step in and restore order. Enter Adam Silver. While Cathy Engelbert is silent, Adam Silver is being positioned, largely by the court of public opinion, as the only adult in the room. He oversees the WNBA as part of his role as NBA commissioner. His job is to protect the integrity and profitability of the basketball brand as a whole. When one of his leagues is publicly melting down and its leader is nowhere to be seen, his intervention becomes not just a possibility, but an expectation. And just as Engelbert's silence creates a void, convenient quotes allegedly from Silver have begun to fill it. According to one rumor report, Silver stated, quote, "This behavior is indefensible. The game must be bigger than politics or personal agendas. Now, we need to be clear. That quote is from a rumored report, not a confirmed press conference. But it doesn't matter. In the story being told online, he is the voice of reason, and she is the sound of silence. He is projecting strength, while she projects at best absence. This is how the transfer of power begins. She has, through her inaction, created a crisis of confidence so profound that the parent league now has a legitimate business imperative to step in. He doesn't need the wild rumors to be true. All he needs is the chaos her silence has created. Okay, let's pause here. This is the moment where we as narrative analysts need to step back and filter the signal from the noise. Because in a story this chaotic, the most important skill is understanding what is real and what is just a weaponized rumor. On one side of the board, you have the noise. These are the explosive, headline-grabbing claims that are driving the outrage. The idea of a secret list of paid refs, the speculation about a full-blown federal investigation into game fixing, the viral narrative that Adam Silver has already fired Cathy Engelbert or suspended multiple referees. Our deep dive shows this is almost all coming from the realm of social media speculation and fan-run channels. There are no credible, established news sources confirming the most sensational parts of this story. That's the noise. But then, on the other side of the board, you have the signal. These are the documented, verifiable facts that create the foundation for this entire crisis. Fact: the WNBA has been dealing with intense and widespread criticism over its inconsistent officiating all season long. Fact: high-profile figures, from Indiana coach Stephanie White to Chicago's Angel Reese, have publicly called out the officiating and been punished for it. Fact: statistical analyses have shown a significant disparity in how fouls are called, particularly regarding the high number of flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark. And here is the critical dot we need to connect. The noise is what gets the attention, but the signal is what provides the justification. Engelbert's documented failure to get a handle on the real, verifiable officiating problems created the fertile ground for these wild, speculative stories to take root and seem believable. Her inability to solve the signal problem made the league vulnerable to the noise. And so here we are, looking at the full board. This is the checkmate move. It's not one single event, but a cascade of failures that all connect. It's how silence becomes the ultimate justification for a corporate takeover. First, you have the pre-existing factual problems, the shaky officiating, and the feeling among players and coaches that they weren't being heard. That is the foundation of real, legitimate discontent. Then you have the social media firestorm, a wave of sensational, unverified rumors that landed on that fertile ground and took root because people were already desperate to believe that something was fundamentally wrong. And the final, critical piece that locks it into place is Cathy Engelbert's silence. Her refusal to engage, regardless of the reason, allowed the legitimate grievances and the wild conspiracy theories to merge into one single toxic narrative, that the WNBA is a league in chaos, adrift without a leader. That silence creates what we call a permission structure. It has allowed the crisis to appear so total, so damaging to the brand, that an intervention from the parent league no longer seems like a hostile takeover, it seems like a necessary rescue mission. This is how her silence gives Adam Silver the power to fire her. He doesn't need to prove the rumors are true. He just has to point to the fallout. By saying nothing, she has allowed the perception of chaos to become the reality. Her strategy, whether intentional or not, has become the very evidence her superiors can use to justify stepping in and seizing the controls. In the end, whether the wild story of a secret list and paid-off referees is true or not almost ceases to matter. The reality is that Cathy Engelbert's fate was likely sealed not by a shadowy conspiracy, but by a fatal political miscalculation in the modern age. She was faced with a crisis that fused legitimate, long-simmering problems with a hurricane of weaponized social media rumors. By choosing silence, she lost complete control of the narrative, and in doing so, she demonstrated a failure of leadership that her superiors could not ignore. That silence created the very power vacuum that has now, for all intents and purposes, made her position untenable. So the biggest question for us, as the ones watching this all unfold, is what happens now? I want to know your definitive take in the comments below. Is Adam Silver's intervention a genuine move to protect the integrity of the game, or is he a political operator seizing the perfect opportunity to consolidate power and remake the WNBA in the NBA's preferred image? Let me know your theory. If you believe that connecting the dots is the only way to see the real picture, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. We will be following every move of this front office chess match as it happens. And finally, if you know someone who is tired of the surface-level takes, share this video with them. The more narrative analysts we have in this community, the harder it is for the truth to stay hidden.